Hello and welcome to Rubbin Minds. My name is Hero Daniels. Many thanks for joining us today. It's a beautiful sunny Sunday afternoon right here in the center of excellence, Lagos State. And we have never been more grateful for the sun because for the past 2 weeks, it has been raining cats and dogs. I personally live in the Lekki metropolis and I am seriously considering buying a speedboat or a canoe to add to my fleet of cars because you cannot even navigate with cars. You literally have to find a way to go through the waters before getting to your destination. And this is a recurring issue every single year. The National Emergency, NEMA, National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA has, constantly said, okay, these are the predictions for this year, 2024. This is expected to happen, but nothing has been done year in, year out. You see people building structures on drainage systems, and, there's so much the government can do on this particular issue. But at the same time, there's also so much the citizens can do. So let's just get straight into it and talk about our first topic today, which is sustainability floods in Nigeria. To discuss this issue with me, joining us is S.I. Ohumo, who is a data journalist. Welcome to the program.
Hello. Hi. Good afternoon.
Good to have you. So let's get straight into it. Why is it that year in, year out, we're still having the recurring issue of floods in Nigeria? Why are we not taking the impact of climate change as serious as we should take it?
I should tell you that nothing I say here will come as a surprise to you or to fellow Nigerians. It's the same. You could substitute climate change for any one of our numerous problems, and the things I'm about to say will still be the same. We have a serious problem with implementation, especially with climate action and sustainability. The programs theoretically are in place. For example, when you talk about flood prevention, we have the National Adaptation Strategy and Plan on Climate Change, which is a mouthful, NASPA-CCN. We also have Nigeria's Erosion and Watershed Management Project. So these things exist. It is not that as a country we're not thinking about them. The big issue is with implementation. They'll tell you there's a lack of funding, there's always inadequate enforcement, so that hampers effectiveness, and just general coordination amongst different government levels. That's the real issue here. It's a governance and implementation problem.
Okay, it's a governance and implementation problem. So where do we move forward? According to the Daily Trust, over 24,000 households have been drenched and covered up in floods, and that is just one statistics. We can't, in different parts of Nigeria, a lot of states are affected, a lot of families are affected. How can the government really sort of implement and enforce both on the part of the citizens in terms of how the citizens, the refuse management and et cetera, and also seeing how they can enforce structural, put in structures that will make sure that the drainage systems are actually working.
Right. So, but the thing is, the problem is it's not a single-pronged problem. You can't just say drainage system. That's one of a number of interconnected issues. One of the big ones is the world globally is grappling with the effects of climate change. And especially in a coastal city like Lagos, you're going to have coastal erosion, you're going to have flooding. And when you link that to very inappropriate land use, building codes are not being respected. Everyone is building everywhere. And like you've said, with the drainage, you have a problem with infrastructure. You see, when you put all of those things together, you realize that enforcing change and implementing solutions becomes a bit more complicated. But to answer your question in terms of solutions, it's a number of things that need to happen. Land use regulation needs to be stricter, especially with construction in flood-prone areas. Building codes need to be updated and enforced, especially in Lagos. Lagos has a beautiful master plan. I remember speaking with Dr. Tiwalade. I was doing a story for the BBC. Unfortunately, on this particular issue you're talking about, it was in 2021, and I had gone to Ogun State and spoken with a family who had lost everything, and I asked the same questions you're asking now, and the experts gave me the same responses I'm giving to you now. That was 2-3 years ago, So we're talking about investments in infrastructure. Also, a big one is climate change intervention. And when you talk about that, you shift a little bit from the Nigerian government and look at the bigger picture of climate financing, right? So the effects that we're seeing here, I wouldn't say that countries in the so-called global south, like Nigeria, are especially responsible for them. So there's a global conversation about who should actually be funding some of these more expensive climate interventions. And usually the answer is the G20, G7 countries, right? So you also have to talk about the international community funding more climate adaptation and mitigation solutions, which is why I said it's complicated.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yes, I perfectly understand. And I think it's also very important for us to discuss, some of the effects that climate change. Obviously, one of the byproducts of the effect of climate change is flooding. And now let's talk about the effects of flooding on the economy. One of such is food scarcity. We all know that Nigerians are really struggling with food shortages right now, and one of the major factors causing this is the flood. How do you think we can address this issue?
Okay, so with agriculture, I assume that we're zooming out of Lagos for a bit and looking at the states that are more what is the word now? Are more involved in farming and with feeding the nation, right? It's odd that the effects are so different in different places. If you talk about states in the north, for example, you'll be thinking more of desertification. And then if you talk about some other states, you're thinking about flooding. It's really odd. But to come to the states that have issues with this and are also part of the food chain, you think of things like resilient agriculture. So we are talking about flood resistant crops. You're talking about improving irrigation system. You're thinking also about food storage and distribution. What happens when a key road that is used to distribute food from farmlands to markets, for example, gets flooded? You're thinking about how to collaborate with local communities to implement food reserves. You're thinking about diversification. But again, because we're on national television in Nigeria, I don't want to talk so much about these theoretical solutions. Like I said, the government and the multiple agencies, they've got this on paper. It's really boils down to the same conversations we have about things like power, the same conversations we have about policing. It's implementation. How do we move from a point where we know what to do to a point where we're actually doing it consistently? And to be very honest with you, I don't have the answer.
I totally understand your sentiment. And I also understand how it feels that you have the solution right there in front of you and you have failed to implement. And now, do you think the citizens can play an active role in terms of putting pressure on the elected government officials from the local government level to the state level? Do you think there needs to be an urgent pressure from the citizens to the people that we have elected to serve us? Would that work?
Are you familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs? At the very base level, you have shelter, you have food, you have safety, right? And those are the things that when the people do not have them, they get into the streets and they march and they demand answers and solutions from their elected governments. Well, for Nigerians, all of those very basic things are under attack. All of them. So it's a matter of how much willpower can you expend and how do you allocate it? Or for the entirety of Nigeria, you can decide that you're going to apply pressure and try and get a government to make changes with flooding. But remember that outside of floods, even when the food is there and the farmlands aren't flooded, you can't afford you can't afford to eat. And then you shift to security as well. You're not safe. If you're not safe, you're not actually thinking about guarding your home from flooding. So when there's attack on all sides, I don't know that we can be focused enough to apply continued pressure for a particular thing to change. So honestly, I know that this conversation has been a bit of a downer, but we're right back to the point of implementation and governance. Really, everything starts and ends there. Because even when we grapple with the problem of climate financing and say we get additional funding from donor countries or from the countries who have more responsibility towards climate action, how are these funds disbursed? Not outside of corruption even, how efficiently are the programs put in place to mitigate and adapt to climate action? How effectively are they being managed? Are we just having round tables, or are we actually implementing solutions that are sustainable? And from what I know, anyone is free to correct me. I don't think that we are. So it's not a people thing. There's only so much change you can demand for if the systems do not exist to listen to that and actually make amends. And even if you do not have the luxury of sustained focus to continue to apply pressure, nothing's going to change.
So how worried do you think we should be? Yes, flooding happened in certain areas. It doesn't affect other areas. Now, the non-affected areas, how worried should they be? Because I've also noticed this with human behavior. Most often than not, when something doesn't impact on you, or you think it doesn't impact on you directly, you might not necessarily want to take a bold step to make sure you stop it. How worried? What is your prediction about the current situation of flooding in the nearest future? Perhaps if we put that out there, perhaps it could convince more people to take this more seriously.
Oh, it's a very, very serious issue. And I think that there is no such thing as, I'm going to speak pidgin here, it not concern me, because it does concern everyone. There is a multiplier effect. There's so many ways that it will reach you. For example, when a number of people have to leave their homes because it's been flooded, you have displacement. Where do these people go? The food thing you talked about, for example, everybody has to eat. When food supply is disrupted due to flooding, that concerns you. And one very topical issue as well, right now in Lagos, you have the cholera situation, right? Cholera is a waterborne disease. And bad things happen when you have water on the streets for an extended period of time. You have an uptick in waterborne diseases. So I think that whether or not your home is flooded right now, or it has been flooded last week, or you don't know if it will be flooded next week, this is a serious issue that affects the whole of Nigeria. And because we are placing this conversation, we're situating it in climate change. Climate change is not a problem that is going anywhere anytime soon. It is one of the most pressing issues of our time globally. So it does concern you as a matter of urgency. What can you do about it? I think that, to come back to what you have said, we can demand more of our government. I don't know how we do that efficiently, at scale, and sustainably. And so I'm going to put the question back to you. What do you think we can do to move the needle for the Nigerian government to take all of these fantastic committees and all of these fantastic departmental heads that they have in ministries like the Ministry of Environment and actually make some tangible change? The Ministry of Housing and Urban Planning as well. All of these parastatals are connected. How do you think that we can get the Nigerian government to sustainably, consistently implement solutions?
Well, I personally think that it is everybody's responsibility to just speak as much as they can and use the platforms that they have. And that is exactly why we're having this conversation. We could have chosen any other topic to speak about on Rubbin Minds and channel televisions, but we know the government is watching, and that is why everybody has to make sure that they use their platforms to speak, especially young people. The social media is out there to avail to make sure that you're heard at any time. And as opposed to indulging ourselves in conversations that does not necessarily move the country forward, we can put the same energy in talking about these things. Now, I can also relate to the fact that you said that, for people that are affected directly, there's a level of pressure that comes with that. In my opening monologue, I did say that, yes, I live in Lekki, and it's not funny. So it's my car, it's even drenched in water because I had to pass through a flooded street just to get to this place. So it was very, very important to me. It was pressing to me. And even for those that it isn't pressing to, there's always a ripple effect. So the best we can do is just to keep speaking, use platforms like social media, and if possible, organize town hall meetings and invite these elected officials to come. It's their responsibility to do that. But if they fail to do that, we can come together as the youths of this country, organize the town hall meetings, and call the elected officials, invite them, and tell them. So that's just a tiny little bit of a percentage of what we can do. But by the time we put all of these little drops of rain together, I believe it will make a mighty ocean.
That's a very interesting analogy given the conversation that we're having. Yeah. But yes, I agree with you.
Do you have any final?
Yes, I was going to say public awareness, local participation, community-based adaptation. All of these are fantastic sounding words. By the end of the day, it's about looking for short, straight lines to move from wonderful sounding theoretical frameworks to actual implementation that changes lives.
That's true. Thank you so much for coming. It's been a wonderful conversation. And yes, thank you for lending your voice to this very pressing issue. And we believe that the people in power will do what is needed. This is Rubbin Minds. Rubbin Minds continues after this break. Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's time to show it. Right about now, we are about to address one of the major needs of man. Food, shelter, and clothing. We want to talk about food. We want to talk about the state of food insecurity and food shortages in the country. Food insecurity worsens. What does this mean for Nigerians? I'm pretty sure that you know that right about now, people are almost not cooking with tomatoes anymore because the basket of tomato is as high as 150,000 in some cases, as opposed to barely 30-something, 50-something thousand as of last year. And this is just one commodity. We don't want to speak about bread. We don't want to speak about pepper. So many items, food items are highly expensive. And we need an urgent call to action. In the studio to discuss this particular issue with me is an economist, Mohammed Mokhtar. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. Good
also joining us virtually is Irene David Arinze. Hello, Irene. Welcome to the program.
Hello, good day. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
I can see you. I can hear you perfectly. So I'm going to quickly start with you, Irene. Can you tell me the primary factor that is contributing to this unprecedented food shortage in Nigeria?
Thank you so much for having me. And when we talk about food, every single person can relate. I mean, we know that the key essential needs of man, food, shelter, and housing. And so with respect to food, there are quite a number of things that, contribute to this. I would like to start from just a bit of history. When we look at our national flag, green, white, green, the green there actually indicates or symbolizes our rich natural resources, our rich agricultural heritage. And so the question becomes, are we really living up to what our national flag symbolizes, what we are known for? And we know that we were heavily involved in agriculture before we found crude oil, which I like to call black gold, which literally just made us forget, why should we work so hard when we can literally just, get oil from the ground and that's it, But we then see that the drop in the value of our currency has really impacted on agricultural production beyond the other things that we already know insecurity in the country, particularly in the northeast and northwest, but you find that a lot of agricultural inputs that we need, the seedlings that we need, if it's already advanced seedlings, or the fertilizer that we require for farming, or even the tools that we require for farming, all of these things, most of them are imported. And given the fact that we have rapidly seen a decline in the value of our currency, the cost of bringing all of these things into the country is very expensive. Now, we know that we have 4 different inflation zones in the country. So you find that, for example, the fertilizers, the seedlings, the machineries that are required for agriculture comes in through the ports from Lagos, goes up all the way to Kano. We already know that within these northern regions, we get about 80% of the grain that we need in the country from this axis. Now, the cost of importing these things is moved up north, right? And then by the time they're done farming and harvesting, now we are including that cost of importation, cost of labor, and then the high cost of transportation now coming all the way to the south. So you see that naturally, without even doing anything else, the cost of food in these regions become very expensive. So
Thank you.
I'll just stop there.
Thank you very much for that very detailed explanation. You have now highlighted, the factors that is causing this particular issue. Mohammed, I'd like to ask you, what is the implication or what is the effect, especially on the low-income households?
Well, it's huge. The fact that even the low-income household also, their earnings have not come up in commensurate with the hike in food price or inflationary pressures that we have all around. So it's very huge, because what you see is not just affecting the household alone, it's also affecting those businesses that also these household services that normally tend the services of this product coming in. Also, it's affecting business, not just household. Cost of if you used to buy 2 before, you buy 1 now because you cannot afford to buy 2. Then some other commodity are just knocked off your buying list. Somebody was joking and telling me yesterday that they're now beginning a slogan for how you can cook without tomatoes. People are now using cucumbers and others, and so
it's not even a joke; it's real.
Okay, you see, so that's what is not telling you that a lot of people are now. So the cost of tomatoes has gone up. So the tomatoes farmers also will bear the cost on their bottom line, because a lot of people will not be buying much tomatoes as they used to buy before. Like she said, most of Nigerian current challenges that affect households are largely driven by government policy. 2 major government policy: removal of subsidy, floating of the currency. Removal of subsidy, cost of transportation has skyrocketed because cost of energy went up, cost of petrol and PMS went up. So you pass that buck to your consumer. Then when you talk about floating of the naira, importation of goods has gone up drastically, because before now 700, 800, we started from 360 to 450 to 600, 700 when this administration came to power, jacked it up to 1,500, and it's not steady. Today is 1,500, tomorrow is 1,515, next day is 1,400. Nobody want to do business when there's a lot of instability. So it has an effect on the cost of some of these goods. And you know that 80% of what we consume, we cannot actually produce it all for ourselves. Even when the ones that we could produce, like you said, the machineries, we cannot even fabricate them here because we've not been able to take advantage of our steel sector. So we have to import. So it's like I said, the macroeconomic climate in Nigeria is affected by 4 major issues. You have the macroeconomic induced inflation, you have the monetary policy induced inflation. By the time you hike interest rate, your cost of funding has gone up. Then you also have the FX induced inflation, high exchange volatility that has been going on. Then you have a demand and supply induced inflation, because a lot of people are demanding for that product. The product is not available. The cost goes up. So we are suffering from a lot of challenges that is making a household really suffer, because, like I said, cost of this have gone up, and the earning of these households are not going up in commensurate with the cost of services.
Now, let's talk about how the government is responding to these issues. In fact, the presidency, they've actually started, and they've said that they were going to transfer 50,000 naira to 100,000 households, across the country. Also, each state, I think they're releasing a certain amount of funds for the governors to purchase CNG buses, and that is just to mitigate transportation. So the big question now would be, how effective do you think that would be? Would it be highly effective, or is it just a matter of a drop in an ocean?
The problem in Nigeria is that we keep doing the same thing, and we think we'll have different results. Transfer of cash to household, how has it helped? Remember the fraud incident of the humanitarian department that have been ongoing. So you can't say you've come up with a better system. How do you assess the 100,000 vulnerable Nigeria? Where are they living? Where are they located? Where did the data? Where did you get the data to know that this is vulnerable? This is so it would definitely be hijacked by politicians to satisfy their own political ambition, or their own party men or party representative, or their own people. So I'm not so excited about that. See, CMG buses, we've been hearing about CMG buses since they came to power. It's not easy to just get those buses and turn them back, bring them into Nigeria. Not that those buses are there waiting for you to come and buy them. They will have to be produced. So that's why we have had the issues of those buses not coming in up to this moment. That's by the way. Then, secondly, look, there are easy ways that government should address this insecurity. It's just that because, food insecurity, just because government is not ready to take a bite of their revenue. Because like I said, what is causing most inflationary pressures, cost of living that we are seeing is the exchange rate. Now, you've not been able to attract so much effects into the economy to stabilize your exchange rate. So what do you do next? Then you look at things that you have control over. What do you have control over? You have control over tariffs that are paid for most of these goods that find itself to the households that household consume. Why not you use the Kenya experience? Take off tariff of household goods, perishable, table food, wheat, all things that household consume. Take off tariff of instead of giving 3 months of 50,000, take off tariff of these goods for 6 months and see how inflation will come down. You need to do that. So when you do that, then you are addressing not only inflation to the vulnerable, because what you think you are addressing is that the vulnerable are affected, and also the rich are also affected. So what you think you are giving 50,000, the other rich that is running businesses and businesses are not, it will definitely jack its cost of it. So what you are giving them at 50,000, they lose the other way. So bring in a policy that will affect everybody, that will grow businesses, that will bring down inflation. Because presently now the policy that we have is killing homegrown business, because when you want to control inflation, you are not now. Government is saying they are going to pour about 1 trillion into the economy. They are going to bring CMG buses. They are going to give household. They are going to involve in mass economic agricultural production. All and all now. What is that happening? You are now pumping more liquidity into the system. Remember, CBN have even said one time that the problem they have in controlling inflation is because of government intervention scheme. And here we are now going to inject 1 trillion. So what will happen? Definitely the next MPC meeting, CBN will hike rate. And once CBN hike rate, that means cost of funding are going up. So small businesses will suffer. Who will come into your economy? The hot money, those abroad. Those fixed income space, those are the ones that will not come into your economy. Are they coming to stay for the long haul? Definitely not. So we need to look at, you see, what we've been doing is copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. We started this copy and paste with the United States of America. Today, their rate has gone down. We are still doing hike the rate. And the more you hike the rate,
yeah, so basically you are saying that every country's problem is bespoke, and we should be able to solve our problems based on the uniqueness of our country.
How did we address our COVID-19 pandemic? We came up with our own ingenious ways of addressing it. Even the world have to come and learn from Nigeria.
Okay, so I need you to hold that thought, because I need to speak with Irene right now. We need to talk about the ripple effect of food insecurity on other sectors. Irene, you were very, when you were elucidating your initial points, you did speak about how, the primary factors of naira flotation, etc., affected where we are now in terms of food insecurity. Now, how is this particular problem affecting other areas of our economy?
Thank you very much for that question. But I think it's very important, given that the conversation is really about food security, food insecurity and inflation. I'm currently in Michigan, and Michigan State University to be precise. And I find that during a lot of our meals, there are a lot of variety. And I had to ask how do we get all of these our agricultural produce? And the response was, well, we grow most of the things that we eat here. And I had to then go look at the farms around the school. And I realized even though it's a land-grant university, they are heavily involved in agriculture. And I think that one way we can actually solve the problem of, farming, feeding, food insecurity is for us to also embrace subsistence farming. I was on this show a while ago with Ebuka where we talked about inflation. At the time, I was not even farming, but I needed to also see what it looked like as a Nigerian citizen to farm and to grow what it is my household would eat. Now, I can tell you categorically that investing in the entire, so it was rice that I found at the time, right? Yeah. It was just a half bag of paddy. I did not even use the advanced seedling, which was supposed to give me very high yield. But I can tell you that after 3 months, I was able to harvest for just a plot of land at the time. I was able to harvest 10 bags of rice. I think it was about 11 bags of rice. For the last 3 years, I can categorically tell you that I have not bought rice in my house. I have even had to gift because I can't finish 10 bags of rice. So you see that, for example, and when I started farming my rice, I could see, even when I'm cooking it, the starch that is brought out by the time I'm washing is not white. It's not what we are used to when we have to eat foreign rice. So you see how I already know that is more healthy for me. It's more healthy for my family. And all of these things are very critical points that we really should pay attention to. You were asking how this, floats into other aspects of, the other sectors. We have health, we have education. If children are not able to eat balanced diets, how are they going to be able to concentrate in school, for example? Now, I'm very sure that the level of imbalance bit when it comes to nutrition in your food. Of course, you know that it's cheaper to eat carbohydrates than anything else, right? When it comes to your nutritional content in your food. And you realize that people just eat what is available, right? And they're not even able to eat 3 times a day. I've had quite a number of people tell me, oh, we used to eat 3 times a day, but now we're eating just once a day. These are things. So you see that it's an entire value chain that we really need to start finding solutions. While we know that the government has its responsibility. I strongly believe that Nigerian citizens, I always say that every time, I believe that every household should farm. You should at least farm some. I don't know how, but I feel the wealth of okay.
Yeah, I'm going to put you on the spot right there. I mean, you have to consider other factors also when you want Nigerians to adopt subsistence farming, like you said. Factors like, do they even have the available lands to cultivate the food itself? I mean, would you take us through your process so that at least the Nigerians that even have a land to farm on can at least take a cue from you? But I'm saying, speaking from a general point of view, most Nigerians do not necessarily have a land they could farm on. And even if they do have lands, you also have to now consider how fertile is the land. You know what I mean? But please take us through your process very quickly so that those that do have the lands can take a cue from you.
Of course, I'll be very happy to share. One thing I think one of my strengths is my ability to see opportunities and leverage on them. You would not believe that the first farm that I planted on was a farmland owned by a cleaner in my former organization.
Oh, it wasn't your farm?
Some people that took, it wasn't my farm. And it just cost me about 24,000 naira to hire the farm. So there's something they do within around those areas. Some of your cleaners that you work with, their fathers have given them land somewhere. The farm I'm currently farming on, it's my security man's farmland that his father gave him. I'm hiring it from him, and it's just for a little amount of money, and I'm able to farm. And so these guys, because it's their community, I necessarily don't even have to always go and visit. They have guys there that are looking for jobs. So I hire this farm from them. We do the mathematics. I They tell me, oh, this is what I need, fertilizer in this quantity, the seedling, half bag of it, either 30 kg, depending on the square meter of the farmland. My boys in the village are going to help me. They are going to be very happy, helping cultivate the farmland as far as we pay them a certain amount of money. That was the method that I used the last time. That's the same method that I'm using this time. I farmed in Benue, currently farming just at the outskirts of Abuja this time around, and it's working. So I think if we're able to tap into the resources that are already available to us, I also know that maybe not everybody may have this opportunity, but of course, I'm happy for you to reach out to me. I'm on social media as well. If you need to farm and you're very serious about farming, the first farming, I know that the cost of farming this time around may not be that cheap, but for the 10 bags of rice that I cultivated the last time, I spent 199,000 naira. That rice is still remaining in my house. Yeah, we're not done eating it.
Wow, thank you so much.
So you see, you may not really know how these things work, but it's possible. You can farm what you eat in your house. You can do it.
It is possible. It is possible. We're actually running out of time, so we also need to address other issues. You are an economist. Now, you are not necessarily happy with the government's policies that the president has put in place. You think it might not necessarily be effective. So what are the short-term, because right now I don't even think we can afford to have, it's good to have long-term, but we need an urgent short-term strategy. So if you were to advise the government, what short-term strategy will you give them?
One, like I said, cut off your revenue, take a bite. Bring down those tariffs of household items.
Yeah, you've stated that.
Yeah, so bring it down. That's one they'll give them. Then look at how you can also think of importation also of some household item into the country also. They contemplated that before, but they stuck it somewhere along the line.
Importation of household items?
Importation of food items.
Food items.
Because you cannot meet those consumption locally.
Don't you think that might also add to the current issue of our, Naira? FX?
You see, when you begin to talk about FX, it's those that have, it's the people that are able to eat, you will govern, and you begin to tell them how to bring down FX. The other last short-term measure is what they are already doing. I give it to them. They're looking at short-term maybe of attracting FX into the economy. They are looking at what they've done with Exim Bank, they've done with the World Bank. I think those are measures that are short-term to boost liquidity, because they need liquidity to be able to get our Naira stable. But I, for one thing, the best policy that can help drive down inflation is just one key policy, because what is driving inflation in Nigeria is not just the supply chain distortion because of international issues that have to do with Russia. That's not really what is driving Nigerian inflation. Nigerian current inflationary pressure is driven mostly by FX liquidity. Okay. How do you address FX liquidity? Attract more FX into the economy. How do you attract more FX into the economy also in the short term? Yes. Try to come up with a product for Nigerians in the diaspora. Most of them are more interested in investing in Nigeria. Yes. Come up with strategy that will attract more FX in the short term while you fix the long-term project by also looking at other avenues where you attract FX before now. And the good thing about it is that where do you spend most of your FX is in the importation of refined petroleum products. Okay. Anytime soon, we might stop, we'll become an hope of exporting refined petroleum product. But in the short term, I think government take a bite of your revenue, then see how you can attract more FX to stabilize your interest rate. Inflation will naturally take its course, downward trend.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Thank you very much. It's been such an insightful conversation. And of course, please, government, tackle insecurity so that the farmers can go to their farms to farm. This is Rubbin Minds, and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's time to show it. This week has been one profound, unforgettable week in Nigerian entertainment. Congratulations are in order for Nigerian Afrobeat singer Davido, who got married to the love of his life, Chioma. It's been a long time coming. Also, Nollywood actress Sharon Oja also got married to her sweetheart. In fact, rumors have it that they were just dating for 3 months before he popped the question. So for those people that have been in a relationship longer than that and your man is still telling you that God's time is the best, you better point him towards Sharon Oja's direction. To discuss this week in entertainment with me in the studio is a journalist. He is also an actor. He's also a podcaster. He wears so many hats, and he's actually in charge of the, I think, creative space in Pulse. Content. Yeah. Welcome to the program, Dawson.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
It's good to be here.
All right, let's get straight into it. How would you describe this week in entertainment?
I think it's, like you mentioned, it's quite eventful. It's a lot of weddings and a lot of questions, a lot of trends. But mostly, I think it's appreciating love more in the industry and pushing more of that narrative and just, taking away anything hate.
All right.
So it's more love.
It's more love. Okay, so before we go into details as to the individuals involved, let's talk about how the creative economy has been very robust, especially in this week. Can you take us through the chain of value because of this event, from the decorators to the MCs at the wedding? So can you take us through the value chain so that, the government can also see how we can use the creative space to boost the economy, especially in times like this?
I mean, it probably would be unfair to say that, for me to say that the creative space is quite underrated. I think it's at a level where people need to pay attention to it now. It's beyond the weddings. I mean, there's Burna Boys setting out the UK stadium second time. There's a lot happening in that particular space, and I think for one is we are being appreciative of the fact that they're beginning to see the creative space for what it is and what it should be, and not what they thought it was. There's a lot to take in there, a lot for people to learn from, the government particularly. I mean, I recently was going through social media. I saw a part where I think about 5 billion naira was given to the Nollywood space, and given to some producers to make films. And that's just to show you that the government even understands that process and see that, there's a need for us to, give the space some more projection, some more oxygen. So yeah, there's been a lot happening, but I mean, the most that I would say is, I think the light is showing now. People are beginning to respect the space now, and give us more oxygen and see us beyond what a lot of people thought we were. Yeah.
All right. It's also very important for us to state that, I'm diverging from the current issue that we're talking about. There has not been an official confirmation from the family of Sarah Olu Jacobs. So, of course, we have to wait for the official confirmation before making this a breaking news. But it's all over social media. And yes, it was very important that we send our love and we're hoping it's not true, but if it is, we're just waiting for the official statements to confirm this particular news. So back to the conversation we're having. Yes, let's talk about Davido and Choma. It's been a long time coming. It attracted a lot of congratulatory messages from celebrities worldwide, Nicki Minaj, just to mention a few. It was everyone was looking forward to it. If you were not looking forward to a Davido Choma wedding, then you're probably a hater. I'd say that free of charge. It was going to happen. We were just not sure when. As a matter of fact, when the date eventually dropped on the internet, we then realized that there had been plans before then. So they tried as much as possible to not let the plans go out and just throw a date on us. But I think they were very intentional with the date, because the date that they got married was the exact date that David met Choma. So I think it was well calculated. And it happened. Lagos was the shutdown. Rain happened, and I thought it was going to be some type of way. I was in Lekki Phase 1, was flooded, but it's in the midst of the flood, people found a way to come out for David. There seems to be a ripple effect. I mean, while a lot of people are very happy, there were the conversations and the banter was like never before. The Wizkid simply tweeted LOL and the internet went on fire. What are your thoughts on the different sides to all the drama that happened?
Well, I would not exactly say Wiz was probably talking to David or anything. Wiz is a man of his own. So Wiz does things the way he wants to do things. And you can never really say it was pointing to one person. I think if you check the story better, you'd see that he was probably making reference to something else and not exactly David's married to Choma.
Yes, like he clarified.
So it's pretty clear. Whatever happened, we all had a good day. Even a lot of us attended the wedding from different offices and homes. Not everyone could get the invite to the wedding, but it was fun to watch. Social media was shut down for David. a lot of things happened. Even the governor had his birthday, but a lot of people forgot about that, and were just concerned with David. So that's to show you how influential David is as a person and as a musician.
Yeah, so it seems like marriages have just been flying up and down. I think it was Kunle Remi that first started the trend in 2024 when he announced his marriage from the blues. And then the gospel ministers took over, Minister Dawson, lots of them. And was there some sort of consensus amongst you bachelors that 2024 is the year to get married?
Well, to be honest, I think you'd answer that question better, but I think there's no right time to get married, to be honest. I mean, talking about Sharon Audrey, a lot of people have things to say, that she just met the guy 3 months, 4 months. I don't think there's a standard to the number of months that you must, date or court someone before getting married. So if you feel the person is the right person for you, then go ahead. Shout out to Sharon Audrey. I wish her the best in a marriage, and I think we would like to see more celebrity marriages, in Nigeria.
Yeah, now talking about the ripple effects after, the wedding, Davido's wedding, going back to that. I mean, Portable, he's one celebrity that has been very vocal about, how he didn't get an invitation simply because of what Zlatan did and all of that. I mean, what do you think of all of that?
Well, I think Portable is living in his own world. I think he just wants to be happy and have fun. So whatever makes him happy is what he says. I don't think I don't think Zlatan came in the way. I just think the industry happened, and maybe Portable happened. Portable is a very interesting individual, so maybe he wasn't just, maybe probably just didn't handle the conversation or the situation well, and I did get invited. But still, I'm sure I saw some clips online. Even Zlatan was at the wedding, so.
What are your thoughts on this conversation about who got invited and who did not get invited? Because, I mean, a popular social media activist, influencer, whatever tag you want to give him, came online and said, an actress wasn't invited and it caused a ripple effect, and then some people got involved and it was just messy.
Well, I think whoever got invited, the couple probably thought it was good to invite them. And if you did not get an invite, it's okay. It don't mean that you're not a friend or whatever. I think for the better part of it, the couples had the people they wanted to invite, your friends, your families, those who wished them well. And of course, they couldn't get everybody. They couldn't get everybody to come for the wedding. So I don't think it was a problem. So, but still, for me, I think those that got invited probably deserved to get invited. And those that did not get invited, they didn't get invited. And maybe VDM, the VDM issue too came up. Well, what can I say to that? I'll just say it gave the internet some, aftermath conversation, stuff to talk about. VDM, like I said, is a very interesting personality also. He has his own views, opinions and things. And of course, the little debacle between himself and, Iyabo Ojo, I think that is settled now, I believe, because VDN has moved on to other things. He's no longer tackling them. I think he's taking the easier route. He's now focused on why he got on social media in the first place.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Genevieve's comments on Nollywood. She did make a statement that if she wanted to be in Hollywood, that she would have gone to Hollywood, but she experienced a little bit of Hollywood and then she realized that she doesn't want to shortchange Nollywood and she came back. So you have exactly 20 seconds to just quickly talk on that and then we can call it a wrap.
Well, Genevieve is one, a legend, and if she thought in all angles that Hollywood wasn't good for her, then she probably has seen something that said, nah, it can't work for me. But I think there's still a lot for her in Nollywood to achieve and to, more display. I think I want to see more films from her. And I think she's on the right track. So she should do more. She's Don't Lie on Her. That's the last thing we heard.
Yes.
In a long while. We're looking forward to more stuff from Genevieve.
All right. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Dami Dawson.
Thank you.
Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's